believe in the Arcane Breaths and just kind of run the Spellkin as a good card, which I'm totally behind as well. I think Arcane Breath does get used just as 1 mana, 2 damage quite a lot of the time because obviously activators are sparse. So I can totally understand not being fully behind that. But yeah, Seiko going one step further and just playing a single Kobold Spellkin just to add a splash of extra value and resources to the deck.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. Game number 1. Casie currently at a 1-1 score in the round robin. Seiko only playing 1 match in the first week of round robin means that he is just sat at that 1-0 score. If he can make that 2-0, gonna be feeling pretty happy. But he has a this matchup to get through first. This Mage versus the Malygos Druid. What do you think of this matchup? Is it easier than the other builds of Druid for Mage to deal with, or do you think the swipes and such actually make it more difficult?
I think it's relatively similar. I do think you have the opportunity to take advantage of more dead draws. I think Mage is a very good deck at punishing that if the Druid is just a little bit slow, and this build of the deck can be a little bit slower than others with all of the extra greed packed in there. But yes, as you mentioned, the added ability to tempo out a bit of removal with Moonfire and Swipe can be quite impactful in the mid-game. There are a lot of boards where a spell damage Swipe can just absolutely clean everything up. So I think I would say it's a little bit stronger against Malygos Druid than it is against the more board-based variants. But if there's anything that we've seen from Casie so far, it is an uncanny ability to draw ramp in his opening hand with this deck.
Yeah, ramp into 9-cost dragons, I think, is Casey's speciality right now, and this is absolutely absurd. Breath of Dreams and now the Overgrowth as well means that the only thing Casie has to be concerned about is keeping the card draw flowing. And just to triple check, he is running just the 1 Overflow, similar to the matchup we talked about earlier on in the day. But he does have an okay amount of time to get the card draw, especially with that Breath of Dreams to help out. Seiko? On the other hand, not off to a bad start either. Just having the early 1-drops to go there, even just has that magic trick to keep it going. Astromancer Solarium with Cram Session next turn looks to be a decent, at least, follow-up as well.
Seiko with about as animated a reaction as we get from him. Clearly very disappointed with the way this game has gone so far, and how could you not be? Breath of Dreams into Innovate Overgrowth is the nightmare when you're playing against Druid. This is just what Casie does.
Yeah, interesting even turn there from Seiko for me. This looked like the level 1 turn. This seems absolutely fine. But I did wonder if there's ever a nod to just go Shemvala that turn and try and set something up to try and keep up with this ramp.
I do agree to an extent. It's certainly a play that I've made very commonly against Druid. I would say more so when they're not already crazy ramping, because you then have the opportunity to get it down while they only have 4 or 5 mana available. You do go into their 6 mana turn here, which is fine, but then, how much do you really capitalize off it on that 1 turn before you can just get smacked by Guardian Animals, right? I'm not really sure it's a game-winning play, so to speak.
You see Seiko get this counterspell, though, going into that big 7-mana turn. Casie has the opportunity to just quite easily play around this. It does burn, or would burn him, a Moonfire to do so, but it's a sacrifice he is no doubt willing to make.
Rips the Breath of Dreams. Tempo Germination. 4-mana Teacher's Pet seems absolutely fine here.
Woo,
and
okay.
If there's one thing I know about Casie is he despises trading. He will take any excuse to go face in any scenario, and I kind of agree with him here. I don't really see any value in trading into any of these minions specifically.
All right. Yeah, no, this is the problem I was mentioning, right? At the start, Casie has all the ramp in the world and had card draw with Breath of Dreams. Oh, okay. But without the Overflow.
Yeah.
It hurts, and without the Guardian Animals as well, if you don't get one or the other, it is going to hurt. We saw this from Boston. This same thing did happen. Which is why we saw such a almost blasé use of the Germination, right? Because what's he holding it on for if he's got no cards?
Yeah. This is the last turn Casie will feel particularly comfortable without some other way of gaining resources. He can just play Tempo Malygos this turn and feel absolutely fine about it. It's a perfectly reasonable play when your opponent just has 6 mana to just drop Malygos as a 4/12 and just use it to push damage, fight for board, whatever you need to do. But after this turn, he's going to need to either draw heat straight off the top, rip Guardian Animals, or draw an Overflow and find some way to gain resources.
Or I guess as an additional option, one swipe.
Draw swipe, yeah. Yeah, works too.
Looks like it could do the job.
It's interesting, right? Because one overflow is pretty common in most builds of Mali Druid, because you do play those Breath of Dreams, so you do have that additional card draw available. You know, like even when it doesn't ramp, it still draws you a card. But the deck also plays more additional super low value cards, right? There's 2 extra Moonfires in there on top of the Innovates and Lightning Blooms and everything else. So you can see, even though Casie has found himself the card draw from Breath of Dreams, he's also drawn Innovate and Moonfire this game, which means his hand has actually stayed pretty low value overall.
Yeah, and I think when you look at this build specifically, there's 2 of the Overgrowth, of course, 2 Breath of Dreams, and a Wild Growth, which is arguably another whiff card if you're drawing so much ramp.
Yo!
Okay. Okay, is it actually just Solarian Evocation first? Is that more likely to give you an answer to Malygos?
Wait, is he playing Mana Giant instead this turn? You're gonna go He's gonna go Solarian Evocation Mana Giant instead?
I think so.
Okay. I hope he didn't think he could play both that turn. I would expect better than that from Seiko.
Right,
like he was gonna play small Solarian, big Solarian. No, can't do that.
I believe it's Baby Solarian and Regular.
Regulars, you're absolutely correct. My apologies.
Just bring the Goose down to 3 though, which is very manageable next turn with an Evocation. Was that overflow?
Oh, that's a bingo.
Just in. Look, just a nod. Just in time. Although,
Crystal Power takes care of the problem. 4/8 still in play. Swipe in hand. Geppetto in hand.
has used Germination though, so
true.
there is less potential of the absolute mega damage that can come out.
Yep. Most importantly, he does just have Guardian Animals with still value for it in his deck as well. So I imagine we'll see Guardian Animals come down first to thin the Geppetto pool before we see anything else happen.
It just has to be Evocation, right?
Yep.
Need something. Polymorph, good. Damage, good. Most of those bad?
Most of those bad indeed.
Can just throw the Frostbolt that way. That'll deal 4 damage.
Well, I think he just wants to Giant Conge this turn, right? Which he now has to do now.
Oh, I was going to say, should he Magic Trick? Because if he gets another Frostbolt or a Fireball or something, then maybe that changes things. I guess it would have to be exactly Frostbolt. Or Ray of Frost would have done it as well, right?
He still couldn't play it. He still couldn't play it, right? He's not. Nothing's discounted this turn. So if he played Magic Trick, he couldn't play double Frostbolt afterwards.
Oh, sure. He was only on 4, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh no, he was on 5 before he played the quest.
Before he played the side quest.
Yeah. I knew I wasn't going completely crazy. Okay. But there's Omu, which means along with Guardian Animals now, this is just going to create a huge turn.
Yeah, card draw first. Doesn't really matter which order this goes on. He's just going to bait swipe the face, push all the damage. Yep. Four more goes through from the Mali, 6 more goes through from the Moonfire.
May as well cash it in, because he doesn't have a backup Malygos.
Casie also holds on to the excess mana here because he still has potential plays of like Geppetto into Ysera and then immediately rip the card draw with the excess mana. No real reason to draw cards right now. Just not getting it done. Cone of Cold can already stall. Like, Cone of Cold is already providing like a pretty redundant effect to just about everything he was offered that turn.
Yeah, the problem is he can stall, but for how long? Like, what does he do to actually... Because he's already used Solarian Prime as well, right?
Yep. He did play that second Solarian, though, which did then go back into the deck.
True.
He does still have one remaining.
Yeah, one more go, if this isn't just lethal now.
Yeah.
Which, I think it's fair to expect that it shouldn't be, right? Is it just swipe number 2?
Ooh. That is a single Twilight Runner.
I'll make you a real toy.
Geppetto.
Also,
Really
a
just
single Twilight
down.
Runner.
Yeah, really just down as a 6/6. More than anything right now, the Twilight Runner does its job as a 1/1 or a 5/4. It doesn't matter. So yeah, this is good.
It's kind of an interesting decision there from Casie on the previous turn. So he had a 1 in 6, I believe, at the time, just to rip the swipe, the one remaining swipe in his deck, having used both Moonfires to just end the game straight up. But as I mentioned last turn, using that excess mana card drawer up like that does mean that he doesn't now have access. Like, say the Solarian came down and this board somehow miraculously got cleared. If he still had the excess mana in hand, he'd be able to instantly refill likely a pretty big board by just playing Ysera and then immediately drawing cards on the following turn.
Oh, it says explode.
Yeah, it's a nice little backup plan, isn't it? Or is it Bastion, Ray of Frost?
Runs out on me.
We go for the ping first to get max damage across the board.
Yeah, he needs it as well because the spread is only 4, so he needs that to be able to deal with the Mali on the right-hand side. Freeze the 6/6, still one more turn, wait for Solarian Prime. It's about all Seiko's got at this point. Mali now dead, so Casie a little bit further away from lethal, but can just happily keep developing here. Twilight Runner down alongside Ysera does provide that potential card draw that he's looking for, but it's a turn slower and a little bit more fragile. But Casey's in no rush right now. It's just the Prime. It's the only thing that he's worried about.
What makes something real?
Okay, with Conjurers and a Ray of Frost, there's a chance.
That's funny. Seiko's gonna...
Doesn't work with Conjurers, right?
It does, as long as you can't conjure as the headmaster it's himself. That won't work. You can conjure anything else, and it works fine.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Shame there's nothing good to Conjurers.
Yeah. Headmaster card text, if the spell destroys, Conjurer's Calling, destroy a minion.
If for some reason I had it in my head that Conjurers just didn't count for an odd reason, I don't know why, but yeah.
I wonder.
Well, hopefully he'll do it here just to demonstrate. It's not going to achieve much else.
Right.
What makes
Boom.
something real?
There we go. Not going to be good enough, though. Ray of Frost goes on the Geppetto.
Mm-hmm.
It's what, 5 damage? Needs 5 more, and there's a swipe in the deck.
And there's some spell damage as well. Not actually relevant if he does pick up this swipe here. Bog Beam, useful removal tool at the very least. Overgrowth go fishing again, can still find the swipe. There it is.
There it is. And just about Casie got away with that one. That was looking pretty dire until he got hold of that overflow. And I think that was in what would you say, the last possible turn he could have drawn it to actually stay in that game?
Yeah, so I called it where I said, okay, this turn he can just play Mali and feel fine about it, and then next turn he's going to need to start drawing some heat. I think he had 1 dead turn after that point and still was able to get away with it the turn later with the overflow. So yeah, I'd say just in the nick of time. And also very crucial at that point was that the overflow pulled him the Guardian Animals while he still had that active in his deck. Like if the overflow had pulled that the other way around, he didn't have the big Guardian Animals swing. Maybe that was enough respite for Seiko to be able to find himself a win condition. But really, it was a very prime game for Seiko, I would say, where he was so far behind that, sometimes one card in your deck is just so much better than all of the others that it's the only one that you can rely on. I think that was the case here for Seiko. He didn't find the second prime, tried to make something happen with the Jandice Conjurer's Calling, and honestly got given about as good an outcome as he could have expected with the Headmaster Kel'Thuzad, but still wasn't really good enough to fight back against all the power that Casie had coming his way.
Yeah, a rough game one there for Seiko. Casie continuing his tradition of just drawing all the ramp into a high-costed dragon in Druid. I feel like that's just going to happen now for the rest of the season, at least. That does mean he is going to be 1-0 up so far. Seiko still has a good selection of options. I think some good matchups anyway, but this is going to drill down into Casie playing not only this rogue, but also the Tempo Mage of his own, which again looks to be a fairly standard build in itself. And Seiko with Mage, his score's still looking pretty good at 19-13 with a pretty tough deck to pilot, quite honestly. Is pretty impressive.
You were trying to push it as Mana Mage earlier. Has that failed and you're now just trying to call it Seiko Mage? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why that failed. I spoke to you about it beforehand, and you said, that's a pretty good name, actually. I tweeted it, and then you just laughed
made
at
fun
me
of
on
it.
Twitter.
It was a good
like,
tweet,
right,
though. It was a
threw
good
me
tweet.
under the bus.
I've got a new idea.
I've
got a new idea, okay? This is my new pitch for the name of this deck.
Mm-hmm.
Millennial Mage. Right?
Why?
Stay with me on this one.
I'm listening.
Because you can't have Boomer APM to play this deck. That's important, right? So Millennial Mage. But also, you have to rely on the Golden Generation to win games.
That sounds rubbish, all on.
Come
Swiftly
on!
moving on. No! This is what you get. Swiftly moving on.
Okay.
Small Spell Mage from Seiko.
Yeah.
On the bottom.
Yeah. Oh, that name sucks.
It really does. Casie, honestly, even with a Restless Mummy already in his hand, it's looking like he's got the early game locked down with this hand already. At Seiko might have to play a bit of a slower one, or it might be forced into a bit of a slower game plan here.
Yeah, on a more serious note, we did get a quick look at Seiko's win rate on Tempo Mage before we got distracted on what we were going to call the deck and just randomly trolling each other for a while. And he is one of the most successful Tempo Mage players in GM, at least as of last week. So certainly, I think all the way back at week 1, he was playing the deck differently than I was, while I was having enormous success with the deck. And that confused me because he was winning and I was winning and I didn't really know what was happening. But as time went on, I think that just became a thing with this deck in general, right? Is that many different players do approach the games in very different ways, and it can support a large variety of playstyles. And I think that's also where kind of those last 5 card slots come into play, right? I do think playstyle can have an impact on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we do see that as the builds continue to be different, right? Like, even some of the best players in the world can't just agree on what are those last few cards at least. So
Yep.
Casie has gotten hold of this board very early. Seiko just playing the Shenvala, not the first time we've even seen it today played out like this, but as okay, I need to make my opponent do something this turn to just slow them down. But with all your spells are poisonous from Casie, seems like that backstab got a lot better than it could have been.
It sure did, yeah. Professor Slate, that backstab turning into an even better vendetta in that scenario for Casie. Dalaran Mage, but on purpose? What's happening?
Hey, it's full health. That's hard to kill.
I guess so, yeah.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Alright, gotta go.
Yeah, very little choice in this one, I think. If Seiko waited any longer, he could just be dead.
Job done.
Not great. Not great at all.
This might just be Conjurer's Calling overkill, Raven.
Just a little bit. A couple of choices here. There's always the question of how good is play dries into a turn like that. You've just seen the Cyclone generate at least a few spells. Maybe play dries is worthwhile because there are the Ray of Frost to deal with these minions. But it is just Jandis on a board that you are already winning, which is always kind of hard to pass up. And a Raz. Well,
do you happen to have like the klaxon on a soundboard anywhere near you, Raven? Because that's what we need right now.
maybe for next time.
Okay.
Sort that out for next week.
You're like...
Well...
Oh, I mean, is this just the game repaying Casie for the RDU series last week? Is that what's happening?
I just want to ask you a question, Sol. How do you feel about Spelkin on curve in this game? Looks pretty bad, doesn't it?
Alright, well played. Well fought. I concede. Well done.
And wow, just like that. And even Casie kind of shaking his head there because it's like, well, yeah, yeah, that was the game. I kind of just got him. And with Seiko not only having to... I mean, okay, the turn wasn't bad with the Apprentice, and that was probably the timing he was looking for Apprentice anyway. But at that point, it had to do literal miracles to be able to fight back from that board. And things just lined up very well for Casie. I think topping it off just with that instant backstab removal on the Shenvala. Like, Shenvala didn't even do the job of like being a kind of taunt minion at that point. Didn't buy Seiko any time whatsoever.
Yeah, and it made me a little bit suspect, but I think it's largely caster vision that I can see the backstab in the opponent's hand in that position, because obviously there aren't that many spells in Casey's deck, right, that actually take advantage of the poisonous effect there. Like, it was a really good chance that the 2/5 had to be dealt with honestly just by minion damage and whatever else. So I think it's a reasonable proposition there to just play it out and try and contest the board honestly, because otherwise he has to hold on all the way until like 5 mana available. Before he can go Shenvala Apprentice and pop off from there. So this is what it's going to come down to now. Casie having come around to the school of Orange, having accepted Orange as his personal lord and savior by putting Cobalt Spelkin and Arcane Breaths in his deck. He has now just this deck to win with, and Seiko is not going to let us get out of this series without at least taking a look at his tour guide Survival Druid.
Yep, no matter what happens in this series, I think Seiko has played a great, solid game here because he queued this deck. Yeah, I agree. Yep. I do just want to see what this can do. And it excites me. And I think I've said this almost every week, especially this season, is I love watching Seiko play and seeing what he's going to submit next week and so on, because he always just has his own ideas and doesn't just, mess about with it on ladder for a few games, like, I'm not going to bring it to GM. He actually just like commits, and it pays off a lot of the time here. And we see now overgrowth into guardian animals looks like it is the curve you want versus Mage and most of the classes.
The absolute stone cold cashews, Raven. That's what he's drawn. I'm going to go on a limb and say Tour Guide isn't going to have a big impact this game.
You never know. That one armor, that one damage.
Honestly, Casey's hand is really good as well, though. Like, one Maker Sorcerer's Apprentice is premium in the matchup, and he's drawn pretty good support from that point as well.
Yep. Also, Seiko did draw that Twilight Runner, so it does lessen the impact depending on what kind of impact he wants from the Guardian Animals, but with the Overflow draw as well, it does mean that he has the card draw covered. No problemo.
Yeah, I mean, this seems fine. Just about every minion Seiko's going to play this game is going to have Rush anyway, so I'm fine with spending your mana here, just making sure you take care of the 2/2. Seems reasonable to me.
Tour Guide. Imagine if he had Tour Guide in his hand that turn. Oh. That opens up some at least late game plays. Seiko is actually running the double Survival of the Fittest and Kael'thas as well. So even though it looks like Seiko's got the immediate future covered with double Guardian Animals, he has a lot of other things he can use that Bloom to get into as well. So there are still a ton of options for him there.
I like this play from Casie. He's just griefing this turn, essentially. Like, he knows this is the 7-mana turn, so he played Magic Trick. He was offered a secret, so he took and played a secret. Yeah, and he's gonna get Seiko's Lightning Bloom out of that deal. Seiko just feels like he has to test the counterspell there, so he just essentially throws away a Lightning Bloom and overloads himself for the following turn just to test.
Yeah, and I think with Seiko's hand, that's more than fair, right? Yes, it means he can't overflow next turn necessarily, but why even risk it? Look how good his draw's been. Look how good his curve is this game. Like, why worry about one slower turn when you can just make sure you are ahead almost no matter what?
Ooh. You sure about this one, Seiko? Am I influenced by my knowledge of what the secret is yet again?
Wait, what is the secret? I actually blinked and missed it.
It is mirror entity.
Yeah, he wants it to be that, right?
I guess
Just
so,
bops
yeah.
bops in with a Thresher? Carries on
Well,
with
he
his
could
life?
also, like, he could play the Ghidra and then just have an even smaller target to attack into to get the board clear as well, is what I'm thinking.
That's true, he is going into a pretty planned large mana turn with
Yeah,
Overflow
exactly.
and Guardian Animals.
Yep. You just play a Ghidra, leave it there as a 1/4, and then trade into a 1-attack minion.
Get some knowledge. It's not Vape or Ice Barrier. Can't test for Spellbender if he even wanted to, but not that it's actually going to make an impact anyway.
No.
Tough call, actually, isn't it? I think the Twilight Runner's card draw is just good, and because he can deal with it, I think it's just fine. Because he might end up, if he attacks and then gets any kind of ramp into Survival of the Fittest next turn, could be massive, right? He could just play Survival of the Fittest first, and then Guardian Animals the turn after.
Solarian, Evocation,
Jeez.
spell damage, missiles, Cone of Cold, can't fit in Giant. So just Cone, still going to go missiles, yeah, just sacrifice the Giant this turn, okay. Oh, he can fit it. I didn't realize that was going to discount as well. Okay.
It's going to go Evocation anyway.
Yeah. This is much, much better. Better than I thought it was. I'm not sure which card I thought was natural that wasn't in the end, but I miscounted by 1.
That Evocation, though. That Evocation was basically a Primordial Studies.
Time runs out on me.
Polymorph? Yes, Cram Session because he has 3 spell damage minions in hand. So you know what? Okay, big turn there though. And Seiko does not have a good follow-up. At least not that big blowout turns he's capable of with the Kel'Thas and the Omu in his list. But still, Guardian Animals as a backup isn't too shabby. But he does need to do something pretty magnificent pretty soon.
He does.
Just been missing that tour guide all game.
Ooh, that's some card draw this turn. That is some card draw this turn. Okay, Breath, still 0. Sorcerer's Apprentice still alive. Second Evocation. Shemvala draw, no board space. Educated Alec, oh no! Everything's gone wrong, Raven.
I just don't even really know how I'm supposed to cast this. Casey's playing faster than the speed of light. So it's like I'm casting a complicated mage turn on hyperspeed.
Yep.
And it's a hard turn with the million options.
What? Arcane Explosion for 4? Hello? Get in the bin!
I want Casie, right after this match, to go to Twitter and delete any negative comments he's had about luck.
This is still not as bad as the RDU series was the other way last week. Nowhere close. Nowhere close.
It's still nutty, though.
It is insane, yeah.
And like, an 8 damage Wind Fury minion is rubbish in comparison. That's where we're at, Sol. That turn was bad from Seiko, and look at what he did.
So a 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8 from the ping, 4 from the Raz. Casie currently just has lethal sat in hand, ready and waiting this turn. Innovate Hero Power wouldn't do anything, and no Raven, not even Tour Guide, would get Seiko out of this one.
Does Innovate Crystal Power, though?
Does. In which case, Casie could ping his own Spellwing, and I believe still get there? Actually, his apprentice is dead now, which creates a bit of a problem.
Yeah, he can't actually... He can ping it, he can't play the Arcane Missiles, though.
Yep.
Seiko is going to take down the Solarian. I think Seiko just thinking about what exactly is the drawback of not using this to heal, potentially. Because he knows he's still going to take a decent chunk of damage this turn.
I will crush your delusions.
We're going to get that spell damage back with another Solarian, but he's not going to get the attack damage from it, so I don't believe he's dead yet unless I really count.
You can see how important that crystal power was, though. It removed a 3-2 that added 1 damage through the spell damage. So that is the 4 health that Seiko currently has accounted for.
Right, hang on. Turns get really weird when you can Omu and KT in them.
Yeah. You just go. You just go. Analysis point number 1. I like that he's already doing things. Okay, good. So now Kael'thas can come down, and now Overflow or Survival costs 1. He can do whichever one he wants. Probably start with the Survival. Then he goes Cram Session Innovate to set off the Overflow, which he can then cast with his 1 remaining mana.
There's no Innovates left, right? Tour Guide!
And then Lightning Bloom, Nature Studies. He's away again.
Look at Casie! He's like, oh! Buckle in! We're all on this ride.
Innovate.
Innovate!
Survival of the Fittest. So now he can go again off this next Nature Studies. He's just going to spend it on the rush minions.
Okay, it's huge! Okay. Wait, did he? He did attack, right?
I'm assuming everything got through, yeah.
It stresses me out when this animations happen like this.
Oh!
Whoa!
Oh my goodness! Okay.
I'm so confused.
Wow, those attacks went through so late.
Yeah. Oh.
Cells, Breath. Second Mana Giant, just dump it out of your hand, make space for the Evocation. Hasn't found the Spellkin to be able to search for Fireballs or Pyroblasts off any of these Arcane Breaths, which is very disappointing. There's no freeze here either. There's no freeze here currently. He's chipping away at these minions. He's not locking them out.
Michael looks like he's about to get under the covers if this goes wrong.
There's a Vape. Vape's very, very nice here. Cyclone goes again.
More Dragon Breath.
Oh my goodness.
Arcane Breath, sorry.
A Spellkin in his hand would have been lethal like 15 times over this game. He's just not even ahead anymore.
My cards are low. How strange.
How did this happen, Raven?
Educated Elic? Oh, not the Arcane Explosion, right, sorry.
Like, Seiko has to put together something incredibly specific here because there's still a Pyroblast on the opposing side of the board. But the fact there is still a game of Hearthstone going on right now is completely absurd to me.
And honestly, like, regardless of winner or loser in this series or this game, that shows how sick Seiko actually is, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, he just popped off instantly with such a difficult turn, pulled it off, and might actually just win the game. It's ridiculous, but it's so impressive.
Like, all I was trying to do was, like, follow along with what he was doing and just call out where the procs were and what the sequencing was, and still, like, I didn't recognize at the point where he had to stop and go in with the Broom and the Rush minions in order to not just be dead on board. Which he's actually playing the turn and working all of that out as he goes, and he still finds it.
We were really just along for the ride. That's all we were on that turn, and it was quite the ride.
Finds it. He finds it. He finds it. That's what I was saying. He needs to put together something very, very specific to be able to find his way out of this game. And he absolutely has done it.
That secret is vaporized, though, right?
Yes,
so
it
this
is.
actually isn't lethal next turn for Seiko.
Correct.
Which means Casie does have one additional turn to make this work.
Seiko has 1 card left, which is important because he's not going to take any fatigue ticks immediately. He probably can find a free turn to play the Ysera.
Wait.
Well,
Okay, I'm just a little bit surprised he didn't just Pyroblast and say he needed something next turn.
oh, I see. Okay. Well, he has Elemental Allies up, right? So he's just played the first one. He's going to play the second one next turn. Is the thinking, I guess?
Is that going to get him 10 damage?
My dream is
Yeah, I mean, it might help him stall into fatigue.
True, true. Ray of Frost potential.
Yeah, he still has both natural Ray of Frosts
yeah,
left in his deck.
yeah.
He has both natural Ray of Frost, so that's the plan. He's stalling, he's going to draw his 3 spells next turn. That A, most often gets him Ray of Frost, so he can potentially stall out the game and be alive for another turn. And B, gets him in a position where he's thinning out his deck for Solarian Primes, which he also has 2 of in his deck.
Seiko's just already on the blanket fort plan here. It's like, no matter what happens, I'm going to get in my blanket fort and just hide from this.
He generates a Frost Nova, though, as well! That
Insane.
deals with the Dragon board next turn. Yeah, just in case you missed part B of the explanation, part A has become obvious because the Ray of Frost have been drawn, but he's also thinned his deck by 3 spells, with 2 Solarian Primes remaining in his deck. But that is now less important because he has the guaranteed Frost Nova lockout to buy the extra turns he needs for the Pyroblast lethal. There is Seiko's Druid hero power, though, that's offsetting the fatigue ticks just by an extra turn or so. So Casie does need to put together potential extra freezes here. All of these portals are now going to get burned away.
Oh no, my trove of cards is gone.
And then fatigue tick number 1. Oh! He has
So
a...
that is,
Seiko has a giant taunt minion in play right now, and he just hit a minion with his face that did not necessarily need to happen.
there's Solarian. I have to imagine the Nova's coming down this turn, though.
It says explode!
Okay, yep. So you got to set up as spell damage. Go for the Nova.
Yep. As long as he can make some kind of board here that allows him to push damage face, he doesn't need to ever worry about freezing the board one more time. Because Seiko will take 2 on this next tick, but then he does hero power his way back up again. And actually, with just all of these Ray of Frost,
This might be lethal, right?
with all of these arcane missiles pushing through...
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, these hits are huge, right?
Yeah.
It just means Pyro is going to get there, and... wow.
Victory is yours.
What a way to end this game. What a way to end this series. And honestly, huge congratulations to Casie there on a very swift 3-0 win. But I do just want to shout out Seiko because he nearly made it. And I just want to say that was an incredible turn. The KT Omu turn was just sick. Like I'm very, very impressed there. But of course, congratulations to Casie for winning the series.
Yeah, this close. This close to a legendary comeback. Like, we would have talked about that for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
If Seiko had been able to reverse that from that position, because he was so dead. Like, first off, innovate Crystal Power offensively to kill a 3-2 to keep himself alive in the first point. Like, you can even wind it back that far as to why he was even alive in that game, but to even have any window of opportunity from that point onwards is absolutely insane. And don't forget that when he's making that decision about